to another week of BP Kids Online. We're so glad that you're able to join us this weekend. We're really excited to get started. This week, we're going to be learning about how Jesus is always with me. Let's all say it together at home. Jesus is always with me.
Jesus is always with me.
Jesus is always with me.
The last couple of weeks, we have been talking all about Jesus when he died on the cross, he rose again, and then last week we talked about when he appeared to his disciples. This week, we're going to be talking about later on when Jesus appears to some other people. So let's hear more about it from Pastor Elaine.
Pastor Elaine here. Today our big idea is Jesus is always with me. That means Jesus is always with you. Maybe you don't always recognize he's there, but he loves us so much. He might be there though when you feel sad and your friend gives you a hug. He might be there when you're feeling joy and Jesus is so excited that something good has happened in your life. Jesus is always with us. Today though, we're going to be talking about a story from the Bible when Jesus first appeared to two friends. The thing was, they didn't even recognize him. Can you imagine not recognizing your best friend? Well, we're going to be looking at a story in the book of Luke, chapter 24, starting in verse 13. That same day, the day that Jesus rose from the dead, two of Jesus' followers were traveling to a village called Emmaus. They had to walk 14 kilometers. Now, they probably weren't very happy. They had just found out that their really good friend had died on the cross. And as they were walking and talking, Jesus started walking with them, but God made it so they couldn't recognize him. Jesus asked them, "What are you talking about as you walk along?" Like I said, they stood very still and they had very sad faces. So Jesus asked them what they were talking about. Cleopas, one of Jesus' friends, said, "Well, don't you know? Are you the only person visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know? Don't you know what's happened the last couple of days?" "What things?" Jesus asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth. He was powerful in what he said and did in the sight of God, and all the people, the chief priests and our rulers, handed Jesus over to be sentenced to death. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to set Israel free." Some of the women amazed us too. Early this morning they went to the tomb, but when they didn't find his body, so they came out and told us what they had seen. They saw angels who said Jesus was alive. Then some of our friends went to the tomb. They saw it was empty, just as the women had told them. They didn't see Jesus' body there. Jesus told them, "How foolish you are! How long does it take for you to believe all that the prophets have said? Didn't the Messiah have to suffer these things and then receive his glory?" He started explaining to them all about how Jesus was talked about, all the way back through the scriptures, beginning in Moses and in the prophets. As they were approaching the village together, it was getting kind of late at night, and Jesus was going to continue walking, but they said to him, "No, come, stay with us. It is nearly evening, the day is almost over." So they went to stay with them. He joined them at the table, then he took bread and gave thanks. He broke it and began to give it to them. Their eyes were open and they recognized him, but then he disappeared from their sight. So here we have these two friends. They've spent the whole day talking and walking with Jesus, and it took them till supper time to recognize him. But how excited they would have been when they finally realized Jesus was alive and that their best friend was with them. Today we're learning all about how Jesus is always with us. He's always with you. You might not recognize what he's doing in your life, but he cares for you. And he will continue to care for you every day because you are never alone. Often, we have times where Jesus appears and is doing things for us that we don't even recognize. We might think we're alone or we're by ourselves when we're going through a difficult situation, but Jesus is always there with us. He loves us, he cares for us, and he has such good things for our lives. You are never actually truly alone. Today we're going to be talking more about that in the book of Psalms, Psalms chapter 139.
You know, even in times when we feel alone, we can remember that Jesus is always with us. There's a passage in the Bible, it comes from the book of Psalms, and it's in chapter 139. If you have your Bible, why don't you turn there with me, and we'll read it together. We'll start at verse 7. How can I get away from your spirit? Where can I go to escape from you? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I lie down in the deepest parts of the earth, you are also there. Suppose I were to rise with the sun in the east. Suppose I traveled to the west where it sinks into the ocean. Your hand would always be there to guide me. Your right hand would still be holding me close. No matter where we go or what we go through in our lives, we can remember that Jesus is with us. Sometimes we might not feel like He's there, but I want to encourage you today that He really is, and sometimes it means that we spend a little bit more time with Him. I want you to think about somebody in your life who you recognize their voice. Maybe it's your mom or your dad, or it's your sibling, and if they were in the other room and they called out your name, you would know that it was them who said it. But if a stranger was in the other room and they called out your name, you probably wouldn't know that it was them. Because the difference is that if it's your mom or your dad or your sibling or a friend, you spend time with them, and so it's easier for you to recognize their voice. The same goes for God's voice. The more time we spend with Him, the more time we spend with Jesus, the easier it is to recognize His voice and that He is there with us. Even when we don't recognize Jesus, or if we don't really feel like He's there, He is always there. Sometimes it's just a matter of us recognizing His voice. Before we go today, we have some small group questions for you guys to go over at home as a family. So take a few minutes, pause the next slide, and review what we've talked about today. And maybe spend some time to pray together, and we'll come back. Well, we're so glad that you were able to join us today for another week of VP Kids Online. We hope that you had fun with us. Don't forget that this Monday we have another episode of Make It Monday coming out. You're not going to want to miss it on our VP Church YouTube channel. Also, we still have our emails going out during the week, so make sure your parents are checking those out so you don't miss out on anything that we're doing. Follow us on Instagram at vp.kids to keep up to date with anything else, and we'll see you next time.